Camera is live. Audio is live. We are going live with Extra Kurdinary, the podcast. I am your host, Huje. This is the very first episode of Extra Kurdinary, the podcast, and I am so happy that you are here. And I am also very happy that we are finally launching this. So without further ado, let's dive in. Why 4th of July? Why 4th of July, you may ask? The name of this podcast already implies that Kurdishness is a big part of my identity. Being a Kurd, having experienced life as a Kurd, has made me who I am today. But the other part that has contributed to who I am is this beautiful, beautiful country that I am so lucky to get to call my home. And that is the United States of America. So why did I launch this podcast on 4th of July? Because honoring the launch of Extra Kurdinary on the day when my host country or my new home country celebrates its independence is very meaningful to me. Even though I was not born American or in America, I was actually born in the city of Duhok, which is located in southern Kurdistan. Many of you will know it geographically to be located in the north of Iraq. And there's a whole episode as to me diving into why I choose to refer to that part of Kurdistan as southern Kurdistan as opposed to northern Iraq. But I digress. I actually have a copy of the Constitution here. When I became a US citizen in October of 2021, and I will share with you the story of what happened. But I became a citizen in October 2021, and it was during COVID. So, when you become a US citizen, you go through a whole naturalization process, is what they call it. You have to pass the civic test, and once you pass it, you are granted then your citizenship. And they go through the whole process of a ceremony with you right then and there on the same day. But because it was COVID, the process for me was a little less glamorous and extravagant. Even though I was not born in America, I am a very, very, very proud American. I do often refer to myself as an intercontinental Kurd, which technically is how I feel and how I identify myself. But being an American is something that I hold with a lot of pride. And this dynamic is not always very easy for me, particularly because when you involve politics, there's a lot of disappointment. As a naturalized US citizen, I absolutely love this country. I have a lot of respect for the ideas with which our founding fathers built this country. Of course, there's a whole colonial past and a slavery past that we cannot ignore. But with that said, I will refer only to my lived experience. I grew up in Europe, and the racism I experienced personally, both in Germany and in the Czech Republic, which is the two places I grew up in, was far more traumatizing and severe than anything I ever experienced in America. America embraced me in a way that no other place embraced me as a Kurd. I was stateless until I became a US citizen in 2021. So to think about that, my family had left in 1993. We fled Saddam Hussein's regime in 1993, and we ended up in Germany as refugees. And it wasn't until the year 2021 when the United States embraced me and said, "We want you as a citizen. You are part of our country." I am out here launching a podcast on 4th of July, celebrating America as America should be celebrated, but also me being somebody who is very, very grounded in my Kurdish identity. You might ask why I celebrate America so much and so hard. And I get this question a lot. And a lot of people, especially on social media, when I share pro America content, like whether that's me holding an America flag or standing next to my husband who is American, it triggers people. It rubs them in the wrong way. And quite frankly, I this is a conversation where the politics part I do not want to touch, because yes, politics aside, I mean, I could sing a song about how disappointed I am with the way the global politics is running, not just in America. But when I think of America, I think of the feeling America gives me. In the early 90s, my family fled Iraq under Saddam Hussein's regime to honestly give me a better future. I was about 3 or 4 years old. We became refugees in Germany. We landed in Berlin, where, we started off at a refugee camp somewhere in suburbia Berlin. Life was really, really difficult, even though I was very, very young. I could feel the struggle that my parents were going through, starting new. My parents are journalists, and maybe in another episode I will get into that. But because my parents are journalists, in 2003, when the United States marched into Iraq as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom, we ended up moving to the Czech Republic. I lived about 16 years in Prague, and not for a single day did I feel like I belonged to that place. I would always refer to myself as a forever tourist. And I think that says a lot about the place. It says a lot about both the places I grew up in Europe. But it wasn't until I came to America where I felt like I finally belonged. This was sometime after 2006. I was on a green card because my parents were working as journalists. We got the opportunity to apply for US citizenship. And for anybody who has experienced it and who knows about it, it's quite a long process. But without getting into the technicalities of what the citizenship process is like, before you become a citizen, they give you something that they call a green card. And in order to continue to have this green card and be on the path of citizenship, you need to visit the United States every 2 years. So after getting our green card, I remember the very first time we came to America, we landed in the Dulles Airport in Virginia. And I remember the security guy, he looks at me, he stamps my passport, and he says, "Welcome home, ma'am." Chills. Chills go down my back. As a Kurd, for somebody to tell me, "Welcome home," oh my God. Oh my God. That feeling, I can't even explain it. I can't even explain it. And it wasn't until many, many years after that experience that I became a US citizen. But that from that moment on, I felt like a US citizen, whether I had the passport or not. I don't know. I think there's just something about being embraced when you come from a stateless people who have experienced genocides, after massacres, after disenfranchisement and oppression and silencing. So, just like the Kurdish spirit, America was born out of a rebellion. And how can I not have respect for that? Whether history has always lived up to the promise of America being the land of the free is debatable, and that is a conversation for another time. But the pursuit of freedom, that part, that really resonates with me as a Kurd. Because if there's one thing that Kurds understand, it is to never give up on the idea that freedom is possible. I know this part might surprise some people, but the Kurds have a complicated relationship with America because history leaves scars, and without me getting into everything that has happened, especially recently, and with the current administration, Kurds feel betrayed at this point. But again, like I said, I'm not going to dive into the politics of anything here. I am just explaining my story and my feeling as an American citizen or an American Kurdish citizen or an American Kurd. But let me tell you about the story of becoming a US citizen, because that was pretty funny. Yeah, the unexpected happened. So I meet my husband in September. A couple of days later, I get a letter in the mail that is basically a an appointment for my naturalization. Now, remember the story of me landing at Dulles Airport and the security guard saying, "Welcome home, ma'am"? So that had happened about 16 years prior, I want to say, or maybe over 16 years prior to me finally getting this citizenship date, the naturalization date. And the reason why I didn't get it is because I was supposed to move to the United States, but decided to stay in the Czech Republic to finish my studies. So eventually, after getting my master's, I decided to move to America and, get the whole naturalization process started. So a couple of days after meeting my husband, I get the date for my naturalization. They tell me to come in on October 10th and take the test, the civic test. And if I pass, I get the passport and I am officially a US citizen. So naturally, I start preparing for it. Before you go in for your interview, they give you this pamphlet that consists of about 100 questions about America, like who was the first president of America, um, what does the legislative branch do, I don't know. But they ask you a number of questions about America that I quite frankly think that not even Americans who are born in America and or have American parents and an American lineage don't even know how to answer these questions. But I digress. You take the exam, you study for this exam. It's about 100 questions. And I had just met my husband, Kevin. And I told him, hey, like, I have this appointment coming up where I'm going to become a citizen and I really need to pass this civics test. And it consists of 100 questions and I need to answer them. Once I go in for the interviewer is going to ask me, I think, 3 out of the pool of the 100 questions. And if I answer those correctly, I guess I pass the interview and I get to be a US citizen. So that was the goal. So I tell this guy that I had just met, this is what's happening next month. Will you help me study for this exam? And he goes, absolutely. And so, twice a week, him and I would sit down and like study for this exam together, which was really cute. And during this time that we were getting together, he told his family about me and immediately told them that he wanted to marry me, which is honestly very uncommon for Western culture for the guy to want to rush into marriage so quick. But me and Kevin met under very, very special circumstances that I would love to share with you guys on a separate episode. But, we very quickly met, very quickly fell in love, we very quickly decided to want to get married. I'm sure as soon as he told my now in laws about the fact that he is so infatuated with me and we want to get married ASAP, that they were a little concerned that this might be a 90-day fiance situation, which, if they thought that, I would not blame them for. Rest assured, I became a citizen very, very quickly after that. But the story was that I am studying for the civics exam, doing the 100 questions. I had created flashcards, going over them every night. I really, really wanted this to happen. I needed this to happen. My goal was eventually to join the US Foreign Service and become a US diplomat. And this was a dream that I had since I was 19 years old. But life had other plans for me. Those dreams kind of shifted into other dreams. this podcast. I was preparing for this interview, and I love shopping. I love buying new clothes. I love getting new outfits. So I said, okay, I'm going in for this interview. I absolutely need a new outfit. Because it was COVID, I couldn't even go into any store. I looked online for an outfit, and I ordered this suit. And mind you, it was not Shein and it was not Temu. I bought a suit from, I don't even want to, should I say it? I don't want to say it. Okay, I'm going to say it just because I don't want people to be like, I don't want people to complain about the quality of the suit. So I'm going to say where it's from. I got it from ASOS. And if anybody has ever shopped on ASOS, ASOS has really good quality stuff. Like, this is not your Shein or Temu. Nothing against Shein or Temu. Well, something against Temu and Shein. I don't know. Let's not go there. Let's not judge. We'll talk about fast fashion on another episode. But it was from ASOS. My parents were super excited. They had already become US citizens years before I did. But like I said, because I was finishing off my studies in the Czech Republic, I needed to be physically in the US in order to be eligible to even get this appointment. So my parents decided to come with me. My dad was like, I will drive you. My mom's like, we're going to wait there for you until you're done with the interview and, we'll drive you back. And I'm worried because I'm like, what if this takes hours and I don't want you guys to like wait around and stuff? And they're like, no, we'll go to a coffee shop close by and we'll just wait for you. We've already gone through the whole process and we know this is so nerve-wracking. We don't want you to have to worry about parking or anything. So we're just going to drive you. We're going to wait for you. And I was like, okay. I'm about to get out of the car, guys. And as I get out of the car, the suit pant rips from my thigh all the way to my knee. And I don't know what to do. I freak out. I look at my mom like, what am I going to do, Mom? What am I going to do? My entire thigh was exposed. I hadn't even shaved, so it wasn't even cute for me to like walk around with an exposed thigh. Like, it was a disaster. It was a disaster. Murphy's Law, right? Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. It went wrong. I honestly had no idea how I was going to get myself into that building with dignity and my head held high and sit through that interview with my leg exposed from thigh all the way to the knee. I had no idea I was going to do that, guys. I look at my mom. Hey, Mom, do you have bobby pins? Her back is like the black hole. Anything you need is always in my mom's bag. But today, of course, she did not have anything to help me in this situation. I scramble through my bag. I see a clip. I grab a hair clip. It was one of those smaller hair clips. I grab a hair clip and I try and clip my leg together. At the same time, I'm trying to hold on to it and limp across the street, stand in line to get into that building, and you have to go through security. And the security for a building like this is very thorough. So there's about 5 guards. One in front of the glass. There's like 3 layers of glass you have to get through. There's this the scanner that they have in the airports where you put your stuff through it. Then there's somebody who wipes you down with wands. You have to take your shoes off. You have to take jewelry off. You can't take certain level amounts of perfume. It's a very, very, very thorough security process. I am limping in there, holding on to my pants. And I walk into that building and I look at the security guard and I say, I promise you I have nothing other than this clip holding on to my pants because they ripped as I was trying to get out of the car. He just looks at me and laughs. This whole time I'm sitting there and like I'm very self-conscious about what am I doing? How must I be looking to other people with my pants ripped like that? I'm waiting there for my name to be called out to walk into the room. The guy who is actually going to interview me is the one that calls my name and says, follow me, ma'am. And I'm limping. And he looks back at me and is all weirded out and says, everything okay, ma'am? Yeah. Yeah. Today, when I got out of the car, I ripped my pants. And so now I don't want to expose my leg. And that's why I'm holding on to my pants like that. And that's why I'm limping and walking this way. Sorry. Thankfully, he was such a nice guy. We had a little chit chat. I told him a little bit about how I really badly wanted to become a Foreign Service officer. He told me that his wife was a Foreign Service officer, so we kind of connected on that. And honestly, right then and there, I was like, if he doesn't give me the citizenship, I don't know who else he's going to give the citizenship to, honestly. Because like, I mean, look at my English, look at my knowledge of American, I don't know, politics, history, whatever else the categories were that were part of the civics exam. But yeah, he asked me 3 questions. I aced them all. And with that, he looks at me and says, "Congratulations, you are now a US citizen. We will have to sign a couple of additional documents, and you will be back here this afternoon for your ceremony." And with that, I limp myself out of that building. They tell me to come back. I think my interview was at 8 in the morning. They tell me to come back around noon for the ceremony. Normally, you can take your families with you. Unfortunately, because this was happening during COVID still, they had all the people who had passed that day and who were being initiated as US citizens. During that ceremony, we were all in this hall. They made us repeat an oath and handed us our certificates of citizenship. And then they ended with a speech. They ended with a speech that began, I don't remember the full speech, but it began with, "You are now a US citizen. Voting is your most important right." As a Kurd, I mean, coming from a dictatorship under Saddam Hussein, being born under Saddam Hussein, to be told not only am I now a citizen of, I was going to say one of the world's most powerful countries, but no, the world's most powerful country, but that they are telling me that my vote and my voice counts. Thank you. Thank you to the United States of America for bringing me the freedom that my parents were seeking for when they left Kurdistan in 1993. Thank you, America. And that was my citizenship story, guys. It is not only 4th of July, but we are also celebrating America's 250th birthday this year. Even though today America looks quite different than the one that our founding fathers established, this podcast really isn't about politics. It's about people. It's about stories. It's about everyday life. It's about what it means to search for belonging. So tonight, while the fireworks light up the skies across America, I will not only be celebrating my adoptive home country, but I will also be celebrating the launch of this podcast, Extra Kurdinary. While my life story did not begin in America, I absolutely did find belonging here. And maybe that's what being Kurdish has taught me above all. Home isn't always where you were born. Sometimes it's the people who choose to see you, and sometimes it's the spaces that you feel safe enough to create. Thank you for tuning in to my very first episode of Extra Kurdinary, the podcast. I am your host, Huje, and I very much look forward to seeing you guys for the next episode of Extra Kurdinary next Monday.